everyone, it's Helen Hotai here, the diary reader. Let's get into some diary reading. Hi everyone. On my last video I was turning 14 and I said that would go into the 14 diaries on my next video, but I thought instead of going to the 14 that we would cover 13 and unders from memory. So I did keep diaries, but when I left home and joined the army I had like a suitcase with all my diaries in it, and when I came home to visit they had chucked my suitcase out that had my diaries. I had some diaries, but the ones of when I was younger, they'd been thrown out. Thanks Mum and Dad. Anyway, so I've just written a list of the unwritten. Well, maybe they were written but they were chucked out. This is like kindy age, maybe 5 and under. So I recall that I was swinging on our kitchen chair, and the kitchen chair happened to be this colour, orange. So it was like an orange vinyl chair, and I was eating, so my mum had made me something to eat. I was the only one at the table, and I'm guessing I might have been maybe like after 3 or something, so I'm not sure where my other siblings were. But that doesn't surprise me, I'm like the person that's always eating. Anyway, yeah, so I was eating whatever it was, and then I was swinging on the chair, and behind me was my mum's glass safe. So I had some dishes in there, so I was swinging, and what happened? I fell back, smashed the safe, and I got glass, you know, obviously in my head area. And yeah, I just remembered my mum was like, oh no, and then she like quickly came and took out all the glass out of my hair. And yeah, I don't remember crying. I think I was just thinking, oh wow, what's happening? Like, what's my mum going all crazy for? But now I understand. Okay, the other memory I have, is so I call this incident the sink incident. So we had a shop just up the road. It must have been maybe 150 meters away from our home, so not too far away. Anyway, so it was me and Rach. I only remember me and Rach, and I think it was, I know my siblings were at school. Anyway, maybe we were having a nap, and maybe my mum quickly shot out to the shops while we were having a nap. And yeah, so we must have woken up, we were thirsty, I'm not sure who wanted a drink, but I remember that we got up on the sink. I don't know if it was me or Rach. Anyway, turned on the tap, then the handle of the tap actually like came off. So maybe we bumped it off or something. So we didn't know how to put it back on, and then so the tap was left running, and there was no adult in the home, so we were like just panicking, and we just started crying. So maybe my crying must have set Rachel's crying off, I don't know. Anyway, we panicked and we ran out onto the streets up the road. I don't know if we were going to look for my mum or we were just looking for an adult. Anyway, there was a lady up the road, and she must have seen us crying, these 2 little snotty kids crying. And then just as we saw that lady, my mum came down the road, and yeah, she must have thought, what are my kids doing out here? Anyway, yeah, she must have taken us home, and I don't know, she must have told us off. And yeah, that's the sink incident. And yeah, I remember that we were just really upset, and we were just so scared, and we were crying because we didn't know how to turn the tap off. So that was a funny story. And then there's another story where so our family went, I think it was to a place called Wainuiamata. My older brother, he was going down the water slide. They told my brother to take me with him and not to let go of me. Anyway, we went down the slide. I didn't know how to swim, and yeah, I didn't come up for a while. So I think after that I was a bit traumatized with the water. I was so afraid, and I never ended up learning how to swim until I was an adult. This is a weird story that I'd heard since I was young. Anyway, the story goes that when I was young, when I was in kindy, I went to missing, and the police were there and everybody was looking for me, like my family, the teachers, and they found me in one of the cupboards eating biscuits. which shouldn't be a surprise to those who have listened to my diary entries, because I love food. Yes, I just thought that was like a really weird story. I was like, what, really? Like all the police were there? Anyway, I asked my sister maybe like 5-10 years ago, no, maybe less than 5 years ago, I was like, what's up with that story? Like, was that true or what? And she was like, no, that wasn't true. And she said the real story was that it was her job to pick me up after school from kindy. So she must have forgotten to pick me up. So she went home and then she realized that she forgot to pick me up. So she ran, oh, I don't know if she ran, maybe she did. So she went to, she went to the kindy, picked me up and then brought me home. And I was like, oh, okay. So I don't know how, you know, the police story and then that story, like, how did they come up with that story? Maybe they were just making trouble to me because they knew I was like I love to eat, so they must have just made that story up. That was a story that I'd heard like my whole life, so I thought it was actually true. Now we're going into the primary school age, so this is the ages of 5 to 10. When we were younger, and my parents had to go somewhere and my older siblings weren't there for some reason, but we had my older brother. And I remember when my parents, if they were going to go somewhere and we were going to be left with Mike, it was like a dreaded thing. Like we're like, oh no, there was probably only 2 siblings that we dreaded not wanting to stay home alone with, which would have been my sister Val and my brother Mike. So I'll share with you the ones about our brother Mike. So our brother Mike is older, like 7 to 9 years older than Rach, Don and myself. So when my parents would go out, we would have to play hide and seek. So we had like a long hallway in our house, and we would like close all the doors, and there was also a piano. So our hallway was like an L shape. So there was the long hallway, and then on the other parts was the piano. So what Mike would do is he would like put on this big black trench coat, and then like would close all the doors so the hallway was like really dark. And then we would have to go and hide, and he would be the one obviously trying to find us. But when, like, not that there was like even like many places that we could hide, because it was just like a long corridor. What he would do is he would play the keys on the piano, but down the other end where it's like sounds really like scary, like the deep toned keys. Anyway, so he would do that, and we would like freak out and be so scared and scream. Yeah, so those are, I suppose that was Mike's way of like probably paying us back for being little brats at the time. So Rach, Diane and myself, when my dad would have his pay on Wednesday, like in the morning before he would go to work, he would ask us, okay, so what treat do you want me to buy you guys after work? And so for us, we like treats wasn't really a common thing for us. We went through a phase where Dad would buy us some really good treats, so that was like our best day, our favourite day of the week was Wednesday. And I remember like our older siblings, if they were mean to us, they'd be like really extra kind to us on like Wednesdays, because they knew that's when, because Dad only bought the treats for like the 3 younger ones. Probably knew that when Dad bought treats that they needed to be extra kind to us so that we could share with them. But yeah, we would have shared with them anyway. I don't think we really had a choice, and it just wasn't the way that we were brought up. We were always taught to share. So yeah, so that was our favourite today. That was the highlight of the week, was getting our treats from Dad. So we all remember that Wednesday was our treats day. It was a Saturday morning, and I remember my mum doing the washing, and she was really grumpy. I don't know why she was grumpy for. And then my dad was like, okay, let's go girls. So it was Rach, me and Dinah, and he was like, what should we do today? And he's like, you can buy anything that you want to eat and we'll go anywhere that you want to. So I was like, oh, that's so cool. So yeah, that's like one of those memories that I've just always remembered, and it was such a great day too. I remember we were at the park. I remember we got to, like I said, to choose something that we wanted to eat. So yeah, that was a real treat for us, going out with our dad. So we went to the park. I think I chose ice cream. I can't remember, or that might have been something that Dinah chose. But we all got to choose something, so yeah, that was awesome. We loved that. And I remember we got home and yeah, my mum must have been talking to my dad, like saying, "What did you guys get up to?" I'm guessing maybe my dad must have made her angry, so he must have said, "Okay, well, I'm gonna take the girls out. Let's go and be away from this grumpy lady." What's the other one? Oh, pancakes. Okay, so if you have never heard of chocolate pancakes, we used to make chocolate pancakes. Oh, actually, I think Rachel made them for us. So our older siblings, they went to high school, and while they were at high school, we were in primary. Maybe Rach was intermediate at that stage. Anyway, the primary kids would always get home before the high school kids, and I think we got home maybe at least 40-50 minutes before they got home. So what we used to do, because we weren't allowed to touch the oven or turn it on or anything like that, only because my parents didn't want us to burn down the house accidentally. Anyway, so yeah, we used to always make, not always, but you know, when we had the ingredients, Rach would make us some chocolate pancakes after school, and we'd love them. They were so delicious. So Rach would do the cooking, me and Dinah probably just have to do the cleaning and then get to eat all the yum food. Anyway, so before the siblings got home, we would have to just make sure that we aired out, like opened all the kitchen windows, made sure all the yum food smells had gone before they got home. Yeah, so we used to do that all the time. That was fun times. And I think there was one time where the pan got burnt. So, and I think we ran out of time, like we didn't have time to like clean the pan before our older siblings got home. So I think we just ended up chucking the pan over the fence. So behind our house, there was like a grassy area, like, you know, high in grass. So I think we just like chucked the pan in there. My mum must have been thinking, "Hey, where's my pan?" Anyway, I don't think my mum will be watching this, so that's okay. Okay. Oh, and also, so up the road, so we had our house, and then there was like this big vacant section, and then another house. Because the dairy or the shop was like, you know, 150-200 meters away from our home, we would have to walk past the vacant section. And that house, we used to call it the three-legged dog's house. So there was a dog there. He was only little, but he had 3 legs, and he was so fast, and he would always bark at people. And maybe the bark was, you know, bigger than the bite. I don't even know if he even bit anyone. But yeah, I used to hate that dog. Sorry, dog lovers, but he just scared me. Instead of going, you know, straight to the shop, I would always, you know, go up, cross the street, cross again, and then go to the shop, because I didn't want to walk past the 3-legged dog. And then that family moved away maybe when I was in my late teens, and I was like, let's just say I didn't miss the dog. So yes, I didn't have no good memories of the 3-legged dog, sorry. And then I think I was about maybe 8 to 9ish. So I remember it was a Saturday, and my friend came to see me, and she was like, "Oh, I've got a birthday party, and you're invited. Do you want to come?" And it was on the actual day. I was like, "Oh." Then I asked my parents. They're like, "Yeah, okay, yeah, you can go to your friend's birthday," because she only lived maybe 10 houses away. Like up the road, you could see her house from our house. And Clara and some other people that went to the birthday. So we went to the house, and then we ended up going into Wellington, I think. So Wellington from where we lived was about maybe 20 minutes drive, and for us back then that was like far away, 20 minutes. Anyway, so we went to McDonald's. So we went in the morning. It would have been in the morning, sometime in the morning, and it started getting dark, and I was getting worried, like, are we going to go home soon? And I think my friend Clara was a bit worried as well. Yeah, and then it was like quite dark by the time they dropped us off home. And then my dad got home not long after. He was like, oh, we were waiting for you at the train station. And I was like, you know, I'm only a little kid. I'm like, oh, okay, well, yeah, I don't know what happened. They just dropped us off home. Yeah, I'm just thinking like now, man, if I was, you know, my mum or dad, I would have been pretty upset. Like, where are these kids? They're supposed to just be up the road at a birthday party and they left this morning and they're still not home. So I'm sure my parents would have been pretty worried. But my dad did say that Clara's dad was also at the train station waiting for Clara. And I think that was probably the last time they let us go to any birthdays. I've got here a first crush. So when I was 6 or 7, we had a guy named Joseph in our class. I remember his surname. He was such a lovely guy, really nice guy. And so all the girls in our class liked him. And at that stage, I don't think I actually had any concept of like crushes or, you know, that you like this person because they're good looking or because they're a nice person. Anyway, so all the girls in my class liked Joseph. And me being me, I just thought, oh, maybe I'm supposed to like Joseph as well. So I liked Joseph as well. Because everybody else liked him. I was like, okay, I'll just like him too. So yeah, so Joseph was my first crush, but what I do remember of Joseph was that, yeah, he was just a really nice guy. So that was my first crush, and then I'd go and marry a Joseph. So when I was about 19-ish, so the guys, when I was growing up like that sort of age, we were like all friends. They were all really nice guys. So these boys were in my class and we were playing tag because we were quite good friends, and I was like, hey, why don't we name ourselves the tag team, because we used to always play tag together. So we were named the tag team. And then not long after, like I had other friends as well, but I think when I played tag, I played with them because, you know, boys are quite fast at that age, and that's what you want. You want to be, you know, running around with all these fast guys who can keep up with you, or you can keep up with them. Not long after, they let me know that they had a crush on me. And I was like, oh man, I was pretty grossed out, eh? Only because like we're good friends. I was like, why ruin it, you know, like our good friendship that we have? Yeah, it just changes things, eh? When people have a crush on you, you're like, yeah, I don't want to be in the tag team anymore. So yeah, I think I just distanced myself from my poor friends. Yeah, but they were really nice guys, really nice boys. So they ended the tag team. When I was in primary school, I was actually, I think when you were like 9 and 10, you could join the school orchestra. So the orchestra it consisted of, well, we had the xylophones, we had the baritones, we had the ukuleles, and this big thing that you would use like a sandal, and you just bang like on these different pipes and it would make all these different sounds. And I think at the time it was my friend John that played that. But anyway, yeah, so I was in the school orchestra. I was really excited, and I'm a lefty, so I'm a left-handed. So I had, my instrument was ukulele, so majority of the orchestra was ukulele. So at home, because my dad was quite musical as well, so he played guitar, ukulele, piano, probably even drums. He was a good singer. Anyway, so yeah, we had a left-handed ukulele at home, and I used to practice at home. But then at school, they didn't have left-handed ukuleles, so I would have to play right. Yes, so yeah, I was able to play left and right, only because we had both. But yeah, I used to struggle playing right-handed, but then I just got used to it. So that was pretty cool. So I loved being in the orchestra. And one thing that me and my sisters used to do in the summer, so we had a shed at the back of the house. It was an asbestos shed, of course. That's probably why we all have lung problems now. So what we used to do, we used to love playing in the shed, like playing with all my dad's tools, his nails. Yeah, nails, interesting. Anyway, yeah, so we used to climb up onto the top of the shed, and we had like a little, like a couch that was the length of the shed. And what we'd do is we'd climb up on the shed and then we'd just jump onto that couch. So we used to love doing that. That was fun. I think we even tried to see if we could jump on the ground, which we could, but you know, jumping on the couch was more comfortable. So that was one thing we used to love doing. Okay, so there was a stage when I think I was about 8 or 9. where our class was going through a phase where we were learning the capital cities of countries. So I loved doing capital cities, and I still remember quite a few of those capital cities. So we had encyclopedias in our home, so they were in our lounge in the bookcase, and the bookcase was right next to another glass safe. So I have this thing going on with glass safes, and it's got all my mum's precious dishes. So there was one night, it was a Saturday night, and my family were watching TV. I was sitting next to the bookcase, like flicking through encyclopedias, looking for capital cities. I don't think they were the Britannica series. I can't remember what series they were, the encyclopedias, but they were brown and they had some gold letters on it anyway. So yep, going through looking for capital cities and recording them in my little notebook so that I could learn them and be all ready for, like, when we have our tests at school. And so we had this set of tables. So it's like a little table, and then above that is like another table the size up, and then another one. So it's a set of 3 tables, and they just sit underneath each other. So I had the smallest table, and I was had my notebook on it, was writing all the countries and capital cities. And then I think I must have gotten up to like go and get something, and as I did that, because I was sitting right next to the glass safe, the little table actually tipped over, and it caused a big crack down the side of my mum's safe. And I was like, I was so like, I just smashed mum's safe. And like my brother was there and my dad, I think they must have been like watching the cricket or something. So they didn't even see the crack. And the way that the safe was, it was like against a wall, and a gap like that, and then the window. So you couldn't really see that side of the safe unless you were like sitting right next to it. After that happened, I felt so sick because I'd smashed my mum's safe that I went straight to bed after that. That sounds like a common theme for me. If I'm crying, I go to sleep. If I'm like in trouble, I'll go to sleep. If I've smashed my mum's safe, yep, I've gone to sleep. So this was the evening as well. And then the next day was a Sunday. I remember like Rach, Dinah and me, we were like playing out the back, and we were jumping off the shed. Then my parents, like we were summoned to, like our older siblings were like, oh, mum and dad wants you guys, get in the house. So the 3 little sisters, we went in to see my parents, and my parents weren't so very happy. And they were like, who broke the safe? And I was like, oh! I didn't say anything. So me, Rach and Dinah all lined up, and like Dinah was crying because normally she would get blamed for stuff because she was like the naughty one. Anyway, they were like, you did it, didn't you, Dinah? And she was like, no, I didn't. And my mum was about to throw the jandal at Dinah to give her a hiding. And I spoke up. I was like, the whole time I was standing there thinking, oh no, I'm going to get found out that it was me. And then instead of letting Dinah take the blame, I actually owned up and said, it wasn't Dinah, it was me. And I was like, as much as I didn't want to get the hiding, I was like, nah. I mean, even though Dinah was a brat at times, I could have just let her like take the jandal, but I thought, nah, I can't do that to it wasn't so much I can't do that to my sister, but it was like I can't do that to myself. I can't lie to myself. I can't let someone else take the blame when I knew that it was me. Yeah, so I owned up, and my parents were like, I think they might have been maybe a little bit shocked. They're like, oh, okay, it's good that you told the truth. And then they're like, okay then, you guys go back outside and play. Yeah, so that was funny. Even my sister Rach today, she still hassles me. She's like, what, if it was us, we would have still got a hiding. Yeah, so that was funny. But it's a lesson that I share with some of the children that I've taught at church, and I've shared this story with them, just to encourage them. If you've done something, it's you, just own up to it. It's better to tell the truth than to tell a lie, in most cases anyway. So there's an incident here that I've recorded, and I'm pretty sure I was about 10 when this happened. We were in the hall at school, And in the hall, you know, they've got toilets, and I think there were maybe like cubicle of maybe 2 or 3 toilets. And I remember, like, I was sitting on the toilet. Let's just say I wasn't doing a number 1. Anyway, I like just happened to turn my head, and there was somebody standing on the toilet next door, and they were just staring at me on the toilet, and I was so embarrassed. But at the same time, what are you doing? And then the person must have got a shock and yeah, hopped down. Anyway, that was a bit interesting. That was an interesting one. But I wasn't impressed that somebody was watching me on the toilet. And it wasn't a boy either. Oh, okay, so when I was younger, like 5, maybe 5 onwards, have like big school assemblies, and you know, they'd choose like a child to go up and announce like a segment or whatever. And I used to love doing that, and I used to be so confident as a child. But I think as I started growing and maybe hearing what other people said about you, that's probably what made me lose my confidence and being really shy. I'm like, wow, what happened to me? I was so confident as a child, and then, you know, I grew up and started, I suppose, having a little bit of anxiety, worrying about, you know, how people would see me, you know, what are they thinking? So just worrying too much about that sort of stuff. When we were younger, so we had our neighbours. So Mrs. Best, she had a grandson named Charles. So it was our house, then Mrs. Best's house, and then our other neighbour, Tommy. So when it was school holidays, Dinah, my sister Dinah, myself, Charles and Tommy, we would like hang out and play. So those were fun times. I used to love the school holidays. But at the same time, if I got bored, I was like, oh, I wish I could go back to school, because I loved going to school, hanging out with my friends. Oh yeah, this is a funny one. So I've made a note of this. So I had a friend, I must have been maybe 9-ish, 9, 10-ish. And I remember her saying to me, you know, she was, well, yeah, maybe, yeah, she was talking about like ugly people. And she was like, did you know that like the ugliest people end up being really beautiful or really pretty when they grow up? And I was like, oh, you okay? And then she goes, so you're going to be really pretty when you grow up. It's like, oh, so she's trying to say I'm ugly. I just thought that was really funny. Anyway, that was that's a memory that I still have with me now. So yeah, it must have been about 9-ish, I think, at that stage. There's another incident here. So I think I was probably, 10 at this stage. So I used to love doing gymnastics. We would go to our school hall and set up like all the gymnastics stuff, like the beams and the horse. Yes, this is leading to somewhere. I really loved it, so I wasn't too bad at it anyway. Because I was so good at jumping over the horse, my teacher got me to demonstrate in the front of our whole class how to do it. So, you know, when I did the demo, and what happened? I ended up landing like literally on my face. So I was so embarrassed that I ran out and ran straight to the toilet block, the one where I had somebody spying on me. So yeah, I ran into there and I was just like crying, and I was so embarrassed. Yeah, but I did have my friends. I'm pretty sure it was Clara. We like went through primary school together. Yeah, so she would have just said, oh, don't worry about it, you'll be all right. I know that I'd only just started school, so maybe I was like 5 or something. Anyway, I remember, so this was my first encounter with a bully around like playing, and then I saw him, you know, bullying someone, and I must have just said to him, like, you know, don't do it, or stop what you're doing. And then I just carried on running around. And then I noticed that the bully was chasing me. Like, he was angry that I had said something to him. So he chased me, and I think I had my hair in 2 plaits, and he pulled my hair. The next thing I remember is that my teacher, like, you know, it was recess had finished, and I remember my teacher, her name was Mrs. Wilson. And yeah, I just remember her telling me off, saying that I wasn't allowed to get cheeky to the older, like the senior kids. Yeah, so I was just thinking, huh? Like, I wasn't getting cheeky. Anyway, yeah, I remembered that. I was like, wow. I mean, I look back now and think, why was I getting in trouble? He was the one being the bully. I was just, you know, telling him that he shouldn't be a bully. Another one here, I've got that Valu reads my diary. So my sister Valu, she is hilarious. Like when we were growing up, we used to think that she was a witch, like literally a witch. But now, yeah, she's just the sweetest. Like everybody probably thinks Valu's the sweetest auntie. But you know, when she was younger, when she was a teenager, she was like a real witch to us. I remember coming home from school and she was like, oh, I read your diary. And I was like, what? Like, why did you read my diary? I think after that I knew to hide my diaries. So I wasn't impressed. Oh, but the funny thing was, I wrote in there that she was a witch and that I hated her or something like that, yeah. So when I got home, she confronted me and said, oh, I read your diary. I've read what you said about me. And I don't think I said anything back. I was like, oh, what can I say? She might give me a hiding. So Valu's about maybe 8 to 9 years older than me. Yeah, but I remember there's an incident here where Valu chases me around the table. Yeah, Valu wasn't even living with us at the time, so, you know, she was in her own place. Anyway, she must have come over to our home and I think she was complaining. She was saying some things about my parents that I wasn't happy about, and I'm sure they weren't like really bad or anything. I do recall saying words to the effect of, don't say that about mum and dad. And she wasn't very happy with that. She was like, what did you say? And then she was like chasing me around the table, and I was like, and then I sprinted to my room and I closed my door and I put my dressing table, I pushed my dressing table in the front of the door so she couldn't get in. Yes, I remember her banging on my door, and yeah, she probably wanted to beat me up. But I wasn't too concerned because I knew that she couldn't get in, and then I knew that my parents are going to be home from work soon. So I was like, well, if they say, you know, why did you disrespect your sister and were cheeky to her, I would have just told them the truth. And yeah, I'm sure they wouldn't have sided with her. So yeah, I remember that. Yeah, so Valu, she's so funny. So Valu is the Valu, or Bo Valu is the actual name, but we just called her Valu growing up. So she's our second oldest sister. We've got some stories to tell about Valu. We used to call her the Wicked Witch. The younger sisters, we used to call her the Wicked Witch. And she used to tell us like ghost stories. But the thing about Valu is she would tell us like the scariest stories. Like we'd all be in bed together. She'd tell us the scariest stories, and then she'd be like, okay, Helen, you go get me a drink. Or Rach, Dinah, go get me a drink. Yeah, and like we didn't turn the lights on at night at that. I mean, like, you know, if you were going to go to the toilet or the bathroom or like to grab some water from the kitchen, like you wouldn't turn the lights on. I don't know, I just don't think that was a thing back then. Like we weren't allowed to turn the lights on, maybe in case it like, you know, disrupted my parents' sleep or something. We would like be freaking out because the stories that she'd tell us, like they were all like always so scary. And we'd be like so scared, like, oh, now we have to go get the water that she wants. Yeah, but she's so funny. And then like when she'd get us to get her water like during the day, like we'd have to like hold it out like this, like the water, because we weren't allowed to breathe in it. And then like we'd give her the water and she'd be like, nah, go take it back, get us some more, because you've breathed in it, or you've looked in it, or like a bit of your hair is in it. Oh man, she had like so many different excuses, and we'd just be like, oh. But you know, being brought up as a Samoan is like you just listen to the oldest. Yes, I'm glad those days are over. Yeah, so when I was again about maybe 7, 8ish, so we had a teacher named Mrs. Nagy. Oh, her name was Miriama Nagy, and her husband was Hungarian, and Mrs. Nagy was Samoan. And she was an amazing teacher. I loved her. She was my favorite, or one of my favorite teachers. There was like time dedicated after lunch where you get to perform some plays that you had practiced. Yeah, so me and my friends, like during our lunch breaks, we would, practice our plays so that we could perform it in the front of the class, like after lunch. And that was something that we really loved doing. And that was at the age where I was still confident. Like I still had some confidence where I didn't care about performing in the front of people. I actually really loved it at that age. Mrs. Best would have like some scary stories as well. This is a story that I probably heard secondhand, maybe through our sister Ulla. And the story was that Mrs. Best, she had like a ghost in her house. When Mrs. Best would wake up, like, in the middle of the night, there would be a mouldy man sitting at the end of her bed. And the reason she knew it was a mouldy man was because he would have the cloak on, and I think he had the mouldy tattoos on his face. And I don't know if she said that he had like a feather in his head as well. Yeah, so that like freaked me out. So I used to be so scared. So I was like a real scaredy cat. I remember when I used to have to go next door, because it's always dark. Her house is quite dark. The only light in her house would be the one in her room, and then she'd have like a heater in the hallway, and that would light up the house, or like the hallway areas anyway. And this was the order. I would massage her, like her arms and her legs, and then go and boil the kettle to make her a coffee, and then go and put the dogs down so that they could go, out the back and do their business. And out the back of her backyard, like sometimes the grass was like knee high, so really high. And then underneath her house, there's a gap underneath the homes. You can go underneath the house and it's just like dirt and whatever you're going to store under there. And most of them, well, some of them have doors on it, but her one didn't have a door. So the dogs would go down to the back, do their business, and sometimes, and there's no light at the back either. So when it's time to get the dogs up, like you normally call them like from the back door, like call them and they'll come. But sometimes they wouldn't come, so you'd have to go all the way down into the backyard in the dark with this long grass, and then got this big gap, like no door underneath the house, and you're thinking of this ghost man and thinking, oh no, the ghost might come and get me. Yeah, I used to hate those times having to go down to get the dogs. So while the dogs are at the back, the kettle's being heated up for the coffee, and then would go and massage Mrs. Vest's back. So she'd just sit up and you'd be behind her and just massaging her back. And then after you massage your back, then you get the dogs up first, make sure they're in the house, go make the coffee, and then give her a coffee and give her a kiss goodnight and make sure the house is locked up. Yes, anyway, so yeah, those stories used to freak me out. So if the dogs went too far, I used to be like, oh, I don't want to go and get the dogs. But I remember asking Mrs. Best about the man, the one that would sit at the end of her bed, and yeah, she never had anything, anything negative happen. She just said, oh, he's harmless. There was nothing bad about him. If anything, maybe she felt protected by him. Yeah, so I'm not sure. Maybe, maybe that man was buried there, or maybe that's part of his family land. Yeah, so those are some of the my childhood memories from toddler age. Oh, actually, no, I forgot my intermediate memories. So intermediate ages are 11 and 12. And that concludes our diary reading for today. Thanks for tuning in. And if you want your diary entry read on my channel, please email them to Helen Hotai, the diary reader, @gmail.com. This is Helen Hotai, the diary reader, signing out. Have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening. Bye.